Hi everyone. I wanted to briefly explain why this June video is so late coming. It's been a slightly stressful couple of months, and if I'm honest, YouTube has dropped to the bottom of my to-do list. And on top of that, when I recorded this episode, I've had some audio and visual issues, so the audio and the video goes out of sync in several places. So if you notice that, I'm really sorry. I've fiddled with it. I don't know how to fix it. Hopefully it'll still be an enjoyable episode all the same. I'm also going to be moving more to a kind of post as I feel like it kind of schedule, based roughly around the seasons most likely. I'm finding keeping up with monthly episodes a little bit stressful, and at the moment YouTube is quite a kind of fun creative hobby for me, and I want to kind of keep it that way. So I'm going to skip the July episode, and August and September are probably going to be rolled into one, and then it might be sort of seasonally after that. But I still really appreciate you all being here, and let's get on with this month's episode.
Hey everyone, it's Amy here from Thrift. It's a beautiful day today, so we're having class outside in my grand's garden, and we're here for the June podcast episode. I've got a few things that I've been thinking about and doing in the month of June that I want to share with you. So we've got some sewing, a whole bag of knitting, some thoughts on where I'm at with the business, and some changes I've been making for sustainability. So sewing in June, I finished two projects, this top and the Morgan jeans by Closet Core Patterns. So I thought I'd start by talking about these because these were quite an involved project, and you might remember if you subscribe to the newsletter, which I'll put a link either above or below in the description, that I talked about these, I think, in the April or May newsletter, because I cut them out at that point. And then they sort of just stalled, and I don't know if any of you have sewn trousers before, but the problem I find with trousers is I get really excited about the initial parts of the project, like cutting out and the making of the front parts, like the fly and things like that. And then when they actually start to take form as actual trousers, I start to get really paranoid about, are they going to fit? Are they going to look weird? Is all of this going to be kind of totally wasted time? And then I was talking about this on Instagram recently, so if you don't follow along on Instagram, again, I'll pop a link above or in the description below. Feel free to pop over and give me a follow. I post about 3 times a week on sewing, sustainability, small biz type posts, so just similar to over here. But I was talking about this on Instagram recently, that the problem with trouser making is that you start to get all these questions, these nagging doubts, kind of creep in about, is this going to fit, etc. And then for me, and I'm sure for lots of us, that then turns inward into quite negative body thoughts, like, if only I was X shaped or Y dimensioned, I wouldn't have these fitting problems. And it's really hard not to kind of take it personally, basically. And I guess, like many of us during COVID, like, my shape has changed, my weight has changed, and that is what it is. That's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's a neutral thing, right? It just is what it is. Sign of the times. But then it's hard not to become overly critical of yourself when fitting issues that you didn't have 2 years ago, you now do have now. And I find it hard to give myself grace and give myself compassion that just is what it is. And, it'll probably change again in the next couple of years, and again 2 years after that. Like, we're not fixed in one point in time, and that's okay, So I started these, and then I put them aside for probably like 6 weeks, and then the last couple of weeks I suddenly got the motivation to do it. If you're a newsletter subscriber, I think at the end of May I was talking about projects that were sitting on my sewing to-do list that were sort of blocking me moving forward, and this was one of them, where I get excited about the initial stages of the project, and then things tend to stall, and then I get distracted by the next shiny new project, and then once that gets past the kind of initial stages, that tends to stall, and then I end up with like 3 or 4 works in progress, and then I feel quite overwhelmed and I just go off sewing altogether for a while. So I try really hard to like see each project through to completion. Like maybe you have 2 or 3 projects on the go at once because you have one meaty project and one easy project like this top. But in an ideal world, I wouldn't have probably more than 2 on the go at any one time. I think I had 4 at one point last month, and it was just getting a bit much. So I thought, you know what, I need to just get cracking, get some things shipped off my to-do list, and then I can get moving with some stuff that I'm excited about making. So I finally sat down and finished these. So these are the Morgan jeans by Closet Core Patterns. I did the button fly, which I think is the only option that they give you. I also have the Closet Core ginger jeans, and they're a zipped fly. So I'm guessing they're probably interchangeable. But yeah, it's the first time I've done a button fly, and I'm really pleased with how it's turned out, actually. I did have the hardware to do the proper jeans rivets, but this was supposed to be a wearable toile, so I didn't really want to use the rivets, and then if the trousers didn't end up fitting, I've kind of wasted the rivets. You can't easily prise the rivets out and reuse them. I don't think you can at all, to be honest. So I thought, well, if I start with buttons, if I really like them and I decide I want to use the rivets, I could probably add the rivets in last. But actually, I really like the buttons. So I'm thinking I'm just going to keep buttons on these, and I'm actually wondering whether I'm definitely going to make this pattern again. I don't know whether I can be bothered with rivets now, because there's always that moment, sorry, hiccups. There's always that moment of terror, isn't there, when you go to like bash the rivet in or the jeans button in, and you think, shit, if this is ruined, then if this breaks somehow, like you can't easily fix a broken rivet, and you can kind of just ruin your whole project. Whereas buttons are just so much safer. Like you've got the button in the wrong place, you just cut it off and put it in a different place. Do you know, it just seems so much more approachable. So I made these as a wearable toile from some IKEA fabric. So they're actually a pair of curtains that we had in our bedroom that we initially put up when we moved into our flat, and then we moved the curtain pole, we moved it a couple of inches further up, and I went to let the curtains out, but I washed them at the same time, and I'm guessing I hadn't washed them when I first hung them, so I let them out, re-hemmed them, and then washed them, which is just totally not the right way to do it, because then obviously they shrunk upwards, because they're 100% cotton, but by that point I'd already like cut the extra material off. So that was a bit of a pain. So we knew we wanted to replace the curtains anyway, but this kind of curtain shrinkage situation kind of accelerated that plan. And then I had these kind of just thick navy cotton twill material that I thought they'd be perfect for like muslin material. And actually, I really like them as trousers. So I've obviously got one pair now. I've got a whole second curtain left, and I could probably get another pair of trousers from like the bottom parts of the curtains. Probably don't need 3 pairs of navy trousers now, I've said that out loud, but I like the fabric enough that I'm definitely going to keep it in my stash for a while. So that's the material, and then on the inside I used this really nice just quilting weight cotton constellation fabric that Andrew brought back for me from San Francisco years ago. So it's really nice for the facings and for the pocket linings as well. And then I thread my overlocker with red thread, so you've got that kind of pop of colour, and I did turn-ups, which actually the red thread didn't come out so well on the turn-ups, because I thought that would be quite fun to have red thread, almost like a nod to selvage denim, but yeah, it didn't come out so well on the turn-ups. It's on the inside, not on the bit that actually shows. Never mind, we live and learn. Still pretty on the inside of my fly. And then for the back part, so you've obviously got your pockets, which I might move fractionally up next time, but I mean, it's barely anything to be too worried about. But you have this optional leather patch, and I used a leather sample that we got when we were sofa shopping. We got multiple different samples from multiple different places. I think this one was originally from Loaf, before we realised that we're not millionaires, so we didn't buy a Loaf sofa, but we had this leather patch left over, and I think it makes for a really nice like jeans patch there, so I'm quite pleased with that. I've not worn it with a belt yet, but because they're bit higher waisted, I'm quite excited over the summer to have like like a leather belt with like a shorter length t-shirt, something like this shirt or a t-shirt, just to show off the belt and the kind of high waist trousers. So I think that's going to look really good. I can kind of feel my style evolving towards that sort of more high waist, shorter shirts that's a bit more fashionable at the moment. So I've got a few longer length tees in my wardrobe that I'm going to go back and cut shorter just to kind of update a little bit. Yeah, so overall, I'm really pleased with these. I've made trousers quite a few times now with varying degrees of success. I think this is maybe my 5th pair of jean type trousers. And of that, only one other has been successful enough to be like in daily wear kind of thing. 2 came out too tight, which was a bit of a shame because I did a toile and everything. But I didn't take into account the different stretch percentages of the denim, and then that they were wearable, but like and you know, where you've worn them a couple of times, you just think life is too short to be this uncomfortable at the end of the day. So they went off to the charity shop. And then my failed brown cords that you might remember from back in January that I've not really worn. So I'm actually thinking a pair of brown cord Morgans would be really nice. So I'm going to cut them up, I think, and convert them into a pair of Morgans. So maybe later on in the year, I feel like that's a nice autumnal plan. I'll have that to show off. And I just went on Etsy last night and bought some nice coloured socks so I can wear like socks and brogues and brown cords, or socks and brogues and Morgan jeans with a turn up, and I think that's going to look really cute as well. So I'm going to shoot some video later on of me wearing these, so it's not just me holding them up. But that's the Morgan jeans. So I'll put them aside. And then the second top I wanted to show, sewing item I wanted to show, was this one, which is, no surprises, the Sew DIY Patterns Lou Box top. So I'll mention this in the small biz section as well, but I've just released the Lou Box kits that I was talking about last month. So they went live last week, and they're fairly popular. I've sold out of about 25% of them so far, so I'm pretty pleased with that. But I'm just currently offering the jersey version of the patterns. So it comes as jersey and woven. This is the woven version. The woven version has a keyhole finish at the back, which I actually didn't use in this fabric because it's drapey enough that I can get the top over my head without needing the keyhole. But I thought it might be nice if the jersey kits do well to offer a woven option as well, and obviously then I get to like include a special button as well, which would be quite nice. So that's my plan for the business for later on in the year. But yeah, so this is a remnant from, if you follow on Instagram, you might remember I made the Deer and Doe Melio shirt last year, and I used this fabric. It was a remnant from Abercarn in Manchester, and I bought it quite speedily because I was running for a train, if I remember rightly, and I thought it was silk, or at the very least a natural fibre. It's totally not. It's totally some kind of polyester blend or similar. But it's like, I think it is a blend because it is comfortable to wear. Normally I'm a bit of a sweaty Betty, so if it's 100% polyester, I'll definitely be able to tell within a couple of hours. And I can definitely wear this all day without feeling like that, which is nice. But yeah, it's definitely not a natural fibre. It's something. It's a blend. But still, it's nice and drapey. And I really like this horseshoe print. I was that teenage girl that was a bit pony mad, and I never really grew out of that, so I still sort of harbour a secret desire to have a pony in the future. And whenever we go on holiday, I always try to squeeze in a pony ride on the beach or a pony ride up a mountain or something. So it's nice to have a little nod to that part of my hobbies and interests. Yeah, there's not much to say about the Lou Box that I haven't said a million times already. It's really nice and easy to make. It's really wearable. I did all French seams in this one, which is quite a nice way to finish it. Just makes it that little bit more special. And I would definitely recommend. So I'll take some video later of me wearing this and the Morgan top, and then you can see it on. But if you're thinking about the Lou Box as a sewing pattern for this summer, be sure to pop into the description and click the link, because I sell kits in the shop now. sustainability section, I wanted to share some thoughts that I've had this month on bulk buying products. Because we've moved, a couple of years ago, we moved to bulk buying our washing up liquid. We were buying Method washing up liquid, which is supposed to be eco-friendly, like biodegradable formula where it doesn't harm aquatic life. But the other reason I liked Method was because the plastic bottle is I think they call it cradle to cradle plastic, so it's recyclable and recycled, if that makes sense. So they make the bottle out of recycled plastic, but then the bottle itself is also recyclable, because a lot of the plastic kind of material that product bottles are made from is either recycled or recyclable, but not necessarily always both. So it's always worth double checking that on the little logo, the little recycle logo. It should give you an idea of whether it's recycled and or recyclable, and it'll obviously give you the PET number, like the type of, I guess, plastic molecule that it's made up of, and then you can look online to see how easy or not that is to recycle. That was one of the things that attracted me to Method initially, was because of that sort of thing about their plastic bottles. But the downside of Method is you can't bulk buy it. So the biggest kind of bulk buy that they do is this sort of like, it's a lot flimsier plastic kind of sachet with a pouring spout on, and I think it's got either 2 or 3 bottles worth in it, and then the idea is that you decant it into your pump action bottle and you just keep the original bottle and refill it. But you can only get, I think, 2 or 3 different sort of sizes before you just have to buy another plastic refill, and obviously the plastic refill, whilst I think it is still recycled and recyclable, it is still, you know, having to buy plastic. So it's not ideal. Like, it's better than buying a new bottle every time, obviously, because you're only then having to replace it every maybe third bottle's worth. But yeah, it's not ideal. So I was looking online for eco-friendly brands that offer much bigger refills, and I came across one that I'll put in a picture up the top, because I'm filming this in my grand's garden and I've brought everything else with me for filming the June episode except our bulk buy bottles, which I forgot. So I'll put up the top a picture of it so you can see exactly what brand it is. But this brand, it's an eco-friendly kind of vegan formula, you know, doesn't test on animals, etc., biodegradable, friendly to aquatic life, so everything that Method is. But the added bonus is it comes in a 5-litre refill, so you know those like massive tubs. You can buy it off Amazon, which is kind of a separate issue, isn't it? The pros and cons of buying off Amazon. But for me personally, at this stage of my life, I don't have the time to go to my local like eco-friendly refill shop every time I need stuff. So buying off Amazon is unfortunately a bit of a necessary evil for me at the moment, and I'm sure for a lot of people. So yeah, I buy this refill off Amazon, and looking back on my Amazon orders, I think I buy about 1 a year. It looks like, so this 5-litre tub does us for about a year, which there's only 2 adults in my house. We don't have kids or, you know, multiple people living with us, etc. So I guess your mileage may vary in how long it lasts for, but once a year for plastic waste is pretty good. So I still use my original like Method pump action kind of washing up liquid dispenser. I just refill it every so often from this 5-litre container. And yeah, that works quite well for me. We live in a 1-bed flat, so we don't have a huge amount of storage, so that's something else to consider if you're thinking about bulk buying, is where are you going to store the stuff, because obviously you need the space to store the actual like bulk buy container and the separate container that you're going to use on a daily or weekly basis. So storage is definitely worth considering when you bulk buy, but we're lucky enough to have a lockable kind of basement room, so I store a lot of this stuff down there. So this month the thing that was new was that I've also finally done the same for shampoo. So the reason it took me ages to make the same change for shampoo is because Andrew and I couldn't find an eco-friendly shampoo brand that you could buy in bulk that we both liked. And obviously that's, you know, that is another key factor, like unless you're a lot more hardcore with your sustainability ethics than I am, you know, ultimately I've got to enjoy using the product as well, and if you don't like the smell or you don't like the way that it works in your hair or whatever, like that is obviously a deal breaker for something that you're going to put on your body daily. So yeah, we tried a few different options, and for this I would definitely say if you're thinking about bulk buying, make sure to buy the smaller version first, because what you don't want to do is commit to like a 5 litre massive tub and then find that you don't like it. Thankfully we didn't make this mistake, but I'm definitely the kind of person that would just be like, this one looks great, we'll just go straight for the 5 litre one, and Andrew's a bit more like cautious, so we bought a few smaller versions of the different shampoos that I could find on Amazon that had a small version and a 5 litre version, and we just couldn't settle on one that we both liked, so we've compromised. Andrew's going to carry on using, he likes either Head and Shoulders or Tresemme, both of which do come, to be fair, in quite big options. So the Tresemme comes, there's like a salon size that's like, I don't know, a litre I think it is, and the Head and Shoulders I think comes as a 750ml, so they are pretty chunky bottles, and if it's just him using it, chances are it's going to last months and months and months. And then I've just switched to an eco-friendly brand, which again I'll put a picture up the top when I'm home, and that comes as a 5 litre. So I've bought the 5 litre, and I bought a glass bottle off an Etsy shop, which I'll link below if anyone's interested. They do lots of different pump action bottles of varying sizes, but they also will put a label on it for you, a waterproof label, because that was my concern, was I want it to be clear what it is, because obviously most of the time it's just the two of us, but occasionally we might have guests, you know, in these post-COVID times we might have guests one day, I guess, so it's nice to make it clear to people that that's shampoo. So this particular company does a, like, you know, shampoo, conditioner, dish soap, whatever on the label, and it's a waterproof label, so you know it's not just gonna kind of wash off over time. So I'm really pleased with it so far. It looks nice. It's a pretty bottle in the bathroom, much prettier than the Tresemme bottle, I should say, if I can ever get Andrew round to my way of thinking. And yeah, it's nice that it's labelled, so it's nice and clear. And the 5 litre one, if it's just me using it, I suspect it'll be like the washing up liquid, and I'll maybe only need to buy like one a year or something like that. And it smells really nice. It's coconut scented, which I really like. So yeah, kind of win all round there. So I'm now looking around the flat, wondering what other things I could buy in bulk. We buy a lot of our like dry goods in bulk, you know, like couscous and rice, and even things like muesli. We tend to buy a big thing and then decant it into a mason jar. And I've got a label printer for labelling all my mason jars. I buy washing up powder in bulk as well, again off Amazon, but it's like a massive catering pack. So again, it probably does us like one every 9 months or something like that. And it's made of cardboard, so you know, it's not a massive deal, I guess, from a waste point of view compared to plastic, but still on that little triangle, it's reduce first, right, then reuse, then recycle. So I figure anything like that that's long life, so it's not going to go off before you get the chance to finish it, that you can buy in bulk, as long as you've got the storage space, it totally makes sense from an environmental point of view. And then the added bonus is it often saves you money as well, because it's often a lot cheaper to buy this stuff in bulk than it is in individual bottles. So win, 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 win. little bit of a slump at the moment. Probably started around the start of June. Things just started to really tail off. I said the word start there quite a lot, didn't I? My bad. But yeah, just sales started to really tail off, and I mean they're still ticking over, but they're nowhere near as many or as frequent as I like, or as I've come to be used to. And obviously it's hard with small business, isn't it? Because there are certain costs that are fixed every month that have to be paid regardless of how many sales you make. So things like my storage unit, for example, which helpfully is just increased the price in the last few months as well. So my storage unit needs paid regardless of how much money the shop is bringing in. My website hosting, my Google OneDrive, so that gives me my hello@Craft and Thrift email address. You know, all of these bills come out regardless of how many sales I make. Fixed costs, I think they're called on the spreadsheet. And it's just starting to make me feel a little bit antsy that I've had to rely a little bit on savings recently to kind of prop the shop up, which is not unusual in the early days of running a business, that you have to have other sources of income to sort of make ends meet through leaner times. So we do have a little bit of savings set aside, but it's our personal savings for everything. It's not just for the business. So the risk is that, you know, the van breaks down and Daisy's not insured for one of her knees because it was a pre-existing condition. So I always have this fear that, like, Daisy's going to damage her knee in the same month that the turtle fails its MOT, in the same month that my business needs a bailout, because that's how my brain works, is I go straight to like the worst case scenario, and then get really panicked and worked up about it. So I mean, I was looking at the Etsy stats recently, and I need to do a little bit more of a deep dive in this, because they do provide you with some stats, and if I'm honest, I've never really looked at them too hard. I've never really had time, or made time, I should say, or felt like there was a need, because up until this point the shop's been kind of ticking along fairly well and growing fairly well, so I haven't really felt the need to look at the stats in too much detail. But I was looking at them the other day, and one stat that kind of jumped out to me that was quite reassuring in a way is what's called penetration. Yeah, wink. But it's basically like the number of people that click through to your shop versus the number that actually buy something. I think Etsy calls it conversion, but in my last job we called it penetration. And it's basically, it's expressed as a percentage. So what percentage of customers click through to the shop and then subsequently go on and buy something. And mine's always sat at between 1.2 and 1.4%, which I had really no idea. Is that good? Is that bad? That seems quite low, but I don't know what's normal for a fabric shop or a shop of my age or whatever. So I was having a look on the Etsy community, and it seems like on the forum posts, it seems like a conversion of around 3% is the sort of industry average. But obviously it's affected by a variety of factors, and things like, you know, the age of your shop being one of them, because obviously the older you are, the more well established a client base you have, customer base you have, hopefully the more sales you're going to make. And there are obviously things that you can do to drive people to your shop. So things like, I pay Etsy to market my listings. So I was thinking maybe I need to fiddle with the budget for that. Maybe I should increase the budget for that. I promote the shop on Instagram, obviously have an email newsletter. The YouTube channel is part of my my kind of longer term business development plan, as it were, to just raise the profile of the shop, make people aware that I'm there, so that if they're in the market for, you know, vintage, thrifted or dead stock fabric, they'll think of me. So I was thinking, like, I could do more to, I could be posting on YouTube more frequently. This is the June episode, and it is currently, I'm pretty certain, the 19th of July, so I'm like at 3 weeks behind where I should be with these episodes. And I guess I could post more frequently on Instagram. A lot of people that I know, that I follow, who've grown really quickly, seem to post a lot on stories and things like that. But it's hard, isn't it? Everything's a balance, and you give energy to one part of your life, you've got to take energy away from somewhere else. So it's hard at the moment. I'm working, full time as a night vet, and that takes up a lot of time with the obvious hours that I'm working, but also time spent recovering. It's hard to go from night work to day kind of living at the end of doing a run of shifts. So basically the day that I come off shift is a bit of a write-off. So from that point of view, I'm probably not going to drop my hours too much in the next few years. You've got mortgages and bills and stuff to pay. So mortgage singular, I should say, not mortgages. Yeah, I'm a property mogul. So, I might have a bit of flexibility to drop my hours slightly, but I'm probably not going to go 50% of full time kind of thing, So from that point of view, if that's a fixed sort of amount of energy, and I've got fixed amount of energy that I can give to things like my relationship with friends and family, caring for the dogs, living my life in general, then there's only a fixed amount of energy that can go to the Etsy shop as well. And I think what this sort of slightly rambly monologue is trying to say is that I'm trying to give myself some grace here, I guess, to show myself some compassion, to be okay with the fact that this is a marathon and not a sprint, and to try really hard not to look at other people's what seems like overnight success and feel, I don't know, resentful or jealous or wonder what they're doing that's so much different to what I'm doing. Because I think that's the problem, isn't it? It's that whole comparison trap that you look at someone who's, maybe only been part of the sewing community for 2 or 3 years, but has gone to 15,000 followers and has already got a Patreon or a thriving small business or whatever. And it's hard not to look at them and think, what are they doing that I'm not? Or what am I doing that I could be doing better or bigger or more of or whatever? But ultimately, you don't really know what's going on behind the scenes in anybody's life, and they don't know what's going on behind the scenes in my life. So it might be that they just have a different set of circumstances that allows them more energy to direct into their small business. And equally, I guess I need to recognise that I come from a place of privilege in terms of I have a bit of personal savings that I can fall back on in lean times. I have a supportive partner who helps me pick orders on busy weeks or takes the dogs so that I can pack orders or whatever. I basically use mostly his technology to film this YouTube channel, for example. So yeah, I think maybe counting my blessings and being thankful for what I have and being okay with the fact that the business is going to come and go, it's going to ebb and flow. There's going to be busy periods and there's going to be quiet periods. And I guess maybe in time, when I've got a couple more years under my belt, I'll have a better idea of, it goes quiet in the summer and then things pick up again September to November, and then it goes quiet over December, and then I can focus my attention more on the busier periods. So I was thinking, if the summer slump is going to continue for most of July and August, maybe this is a good opportunity to get my accounts in order, for example, or to focus more on the YouTube channel, But at the moment, I think the business is still young enough that I don't have enough data to fall back on. And everything was skewed by COVID last year. So last summer, I had a really good summer of sales. But obviously, it was peak lockdown. Everyone was at home. No one could go anywhere or do anything. So it makes sense that people were thinking about buying fabric and staying in and sewing. Whereas at the moment, we've got glorious weather here in the UK. Lockdown has just eased, rightly or wrongly. And people just aren't wanting to sit inside on their sewing machines, so it kind of makes sense. So anyway, I was looking at these stats and I was looking at my I just want to say penetration now, but that's clearly because I'm a child. Conversion. So my conversion's 1.2 to 1.4%, but it was the same last summer and it was the same 6 months ago as it is now, and that actually made me feel a bit reassured. So overall, fewer people are coming to my shop right now, but of those people, the same percentage of people are still buying. So I guess whatever I'm doing to get people to buy is still working, albeit obviously it could be better because the industry standard is 3%. But that kind of reassured me that like it's not like the numbers have dropped off in terms of visits and sales. Like, relatively speaking, the number of sales has stayed stable. It's just that overall there are fewer people visiting my shop. So that kind of reassured me. So I'm thinking maybe I should use this quiet time partly to get my accounts in order, and partly to do a little bit more research on what those statistics mean and maybe how I could use them better in my business. It's just glorious weather, innit? I want to sit out here and knit. I don't want to sit inside on my laptop. But I'm sure, it being Scotland, it'll be pouring with rain next week, so maybe next week I'll get my accounts in order. For the personal section, I wanted to update you all on my enormous bag of ongoing knit projects. I think there's only actually 3 projects in this bag, but they're all at that stage where they're all basically done, so it's like you're holding a whole garment every time you're trying to knit. And at the moment, because the weather is so lovely here, the last thing I really want to do is sit with a giant sweater knitting project on my lap. So progress has been a bit slow, but I'm hoping talking about these projects out loud will actually kind of speed me along to finishing. So I thought I'd start briefly with this one. So if you follow along on Instagram, you'll have probably seen me talk about this sweater. I was full on influenced by Minimalist Machinist, who posted about hers a while back that she finished, and I really loved the popcorn. That's what this bobble pattern is called, popcorn pattern. I don't know why, because it's not the kind of thing that would normally grab me, but there's just something so nice. I like the texture, but also because it's a plain colour, it kind of just gives it that little bit extra that that maybe just a plain white sweater wouldn't, you know. So yes, so I went off and I found the pattern on Ravelry, and I'll link to both Minimalist Machinist and Northside Knit Co Instagram in the description below. So it comes with, I think you're supposed to wear it like this, it's sort of almost like a turtleneck, but my plan is to do like a double thickness kind of folded over, which will be still a little bit of a turtleneck, but I'm not really a fan of like that whole turtleneck right up the neck look for me personally, so I'm going to fold it over and do more like a funnel neck. And it's quite short, so I followed the pattern. You can obviously lengthen it, it's knit from the top down, so you can lengthen it as much as you want, but I'm trying to embrace this kind of waist length, slightly cropped look at the moment. I'm quite into it with my Lubox top that I was talking about earlier, and I think it'll be nice with high-waisted pair of trousers to have the kind of nipped in waist there. So I've finished just about to see if I sit up straight. So I'm done the body. I'm just started on the first sleeve. I'm making it out of this lovely alpaca mohair blend that I'm pretty certain is vintage. It came to me from my granny via her friend Phil, who sadly passed away a couple of years ago. It was 102 or 103, either 102 or 103 when she died, and she had family in Australia, so she used to go over to Australia right up until being like 95, 97, something like that. She used to fly to Australia every other year to visit her family, and one year she brought back a cone of yarn, and she gave it to my granny, who didn't
particularly want it, so she passed it to me. So thank you, Phil, if you're listening from the afterlife. I think it's 3 or 4 ply normally, but I'm holding it double, so I'm getting kind of a DK / worsted weight. So I did a gauge square with the bobble pattern, the popcorn pattern, and I got gauge fairly easily. This is the 3rd iteration for this yarn for me. So I knit a Kate Davies Carbeth and a brick, which I can't remember who does that pattern now off the top of my head, Ysolda maybe, and both just looked really like blah. Like the Carbeth looked kind of like just didn't do anything for me, and same with the brick. So I ripped both of them out because the yarn was too nice to waste. And then I wound it, so I've got this, I love a yarn cake, they're so like satisfying to hold in your hand. So I've had these yarn cakes sitting in my stash for a while, but the yarn was just so nice that I was like, it's a real shame not to like use it, you know. So when this pattern came along, I was like, that is perfect. And actually, one of my pals, Katie of Katie Greenbean, very kindly gifted me some yarn in January, and I think the weight that she gave me plus mohair held double would totally work for this pattern. So if this white one works, which I think it will, I might make another one in green. We'll see, getting ahead of myself. So that's one current work in progress. My second work in progress is, you might remember this from last month, pretty certain I talked about this in the last month's YouTube. So it's finally done. This is the vintage Haywood pattern. It's technically a child's pattern. And I was going to put it on and show you, but honestly I just cannot bear the thought of putting on this massive sweater on like this 23-degree day. But I put some photos in the newsletter last month, and I'll put some photos at the top here. So it's pretty much done. It is done. I tried it on, and the left shoulder head was just like popping up like something from the Tudors. So the right shoulder head, sleeve head looked great. The left one looked weird. So I put it on Instagram. Somebody suggested that it might be that the sleeve head was too big. So I tried kind of pinching out some fabric in various places and came to the conclusion that they were right, that if the sleeve head, I don't know if it's stretched out over time or if I maybe counted the number of rows. So I was pinching out and I was like, yeah, I think if I re-sew the sleeve head like 1.5 centimetres, like half an inch further in, that might help smooth that out. So I did that. I kind of unpicked, so you knit all the pieces separately and then sew them together. So I unpicked my hand stitching, sewed it. I think actually I went in maybe about 1 inch in the end, and it looks much smoother now, which is good. It's still a little bit not quite right compared to the right, but it's definitely wearable, and I reckon over time, once it's been worn and washed a couple of times, it'll probably settle down. It does mean I've got this like slight ridge here because there's obviously more like fabric here than there is on the other side, but I figured if that doesn't settle over time, I could just go back and kind of cut that and then just over sew it so it doesn't unravel. It's a bit of a botched job, but easier than I mean, I could, the other option would be take the whole sleeve out, rip it back a couple of rows and try again. Depends on how dedicated I'm feeling once I've worn it a couple of times. So that kind of sorted out the sleeve head, but then I'm still having problems when I wear it sorry, I just knocked my friend. There we go. Still having problems when I wear it that the sleeve just looks a bit weird. And I think you can probably get the impression here, if I move my arm around a bit, that the sleeve is too long, ultimately. So if I hold this roughly where my shoulder is, and then lay the sleeve out, like the tips of my fingers just come out of the cuff. And to be fair, I had wanted to wear the cuffs doubled up, because I thought often the cuffs for me are the first places to go, so I thought if they were double thickness, they'd last longer. Even doing that, like, yeah, it's still too long really. Ideally it would be like here. So I reckon it's probably like, if I lay it back like that to where I would want it, you know, you can kind of get an impression that there's quite a lot of extra fabric there. And annoyingly both sleeves are like that, and even more annoyingly you knit from the cuff upwards, so to shorten the length of the sleeve I would need to rip out the whole sleeve and then re-knit it. I guess not the whole sleeve, I could rip down to wherever you stop the shoulder shaping and then remove a couple of inches and then re-knit it. That might actually be better because then it would solve the sleeve head problem as well. I just feel like this project's been going on for so long, and if you listened in last month you'll remember that I was bitching about this exact thing because I started this project pre-COVID, and it initially it was barreling on quite fine because it's the second time I've made this sweater, but then COVID hit and lockdown and all the stress and anxiety and brain overwhelm that came with that, and I put it aside because I just couldn't cope with all the cables, and I think that's, for me, often this is where I run into problems, is if I pick up and put down a knitting project I kind of lose track of where I'm at, and then it's so much easier to make these kind of mistakes. Actually, now I'm talking it out loud, I do think the best way to do this would be to remove the sleeves, rip back to maybe like here, remove the couple of inches of extra like length, and then re-knit the sleeve head, and then I could fix whatever this weird problem is with the sleeve head as well. That's so annoying. I will do that though, because I do think that's the best way to fix this problem, but yeah, very annoying. Hopefully I'll be able to report back maybe in the autumn that I finally finished this project. One thing I did want to show you though is I love this little vintage label. I'm not even sure where this came from. It says 100% pure wool made in Scotland. It's the kind of thing that I'll salvage off like a vintage top or something that I've maybe worn to death, and then I've put the top in the recycling and I've taken the label off. But it's been in my sewing box for years, so I couldn't tell you where it's from, but I just thought it was perfect for this. And it is made in Scotland because I live in Edinburgh, so win-win. So yeah, having published this in my newsletter as being finally done last month, I do think I'm going to rip the sleeves out and try again. So hopefully I'll report back on that one. And then my last one is actually going really well, fingers crossed. This one is the Jared Flood Fort, which I made a version for Andrew, which I then liked enough that I wear it all the time. Actually, I think in my January episode I'm wearing a blue sweater. I think I'm wearing that sweater, but I'll be sure to put a picture up the top somewhere of me wearing it. Anyway, I liked Andrew's version so much that over the winter it became a bit of a problem where we would both go to put it on and I'd be like, well, I made it, and he'd be like, but it's my sweater, you made it for me, and we'd have an argument about it. So I thought maybe it's time to knit myself a new one. So I had a Fair Isle sweater in my stash that was too big, too high, too tight in the neckline, too long in the sleeves, just generally didn't fit me. I think it was a Ysolda Teague Strocker, if I remember rightly. Again, I'll try and put a photo up the top. And that had this blue yarn in it, and I thought that's perfect because I wanted a blue one, because the thing I liked about Andrew's blue sweater is that it went with a lot of stuff in my wardrobe. But I also kind of wanted it to be slightly different because, you know, I'm going to say this quietly because he's literally sitting there listening, but if I want a plain blue sweater, I'll just wear his. So I wanted this one to be slightly different but still in the style of. And I didn't have enough blue yarn to do the whole thing in blue again. And the blue yarn is, I think, a Donegal Aran Tweed. Donegal Aran Tweed, I've said that weird, haven't I? And when I went to look, I couldn't find this colourway again. So I thought rather than try and match something that's like not quite right, I was inspired by a sweater that I saw Rare Device Shannon wearing on Instagram, where it's like a cable knit sweater, and if I remember rightly, hers is mustard and navy, two-tone, so it's like the same pattern the whole way up, but half's mustard and half's navy. And I really liked that style, and I thought I'm definitely going to do that at some point, two-tone, and this seemed like the perfect project for it. So it's blue at the bottom, just to organise myself, blue at the bottom, and it's going to be white across the yoke, and then it's the same on the sleeves, which I haven't brought with me, but the sleeves I've already knit to kind of this level in blue, and then I'm going to switch to white, so the whole yoke will be white and the collar will be white, but the cuffs of the sleeves are blue and the bottom hemband is blue. And I'm actually really pleased with how this is looking so far. I picked the cream is a New Lanark Chunky, I think. I've got the label here actually. Yes, Chunky. 100% pure new wool from New Lanark. So I'll link New Lanark down below. Definitely worth checking out their shop. Very reasonable. Spun in Scotland. You can visit the mill and see it being spun. It's quite a fun day out. I've been twice because I'm a nerd. But yes, so it's New Lanark at the top, and then Donegal. It's definitely Donegal, isn't it? It's not Donegal at the bottom. And I'm really pleased with this one. It's quite a simple design. I think it's double moss stitch, so it's like interesting enough to keep you going, but not overly complicated. Which is what I like about the popcorn design as well. That you don't get bored, which is nice. But equally, you can do it whilst watching Bob's Burgers or whatever. So yeah, hopefully by next month I'll have one of these finished. Probably not the brown one, so over the brown one. Might come back to that. But I reckon I'll probably have the Louise one done soon. Thanks so much for joining me for the June episode in my granny's garden. I've really enjoyed recording outside actually. Hopefully you've enjoyed the background noise of the water fountain, and there's not been too much lorries and whatnot in the background. I'll put all the links below as normal, and as usual, like and subscribe. Be sure to tell a friend, and I'll see you all again in the July episode. Bye!
No, it's fine. Just let me.
Bubble on through the darkness.
I mean, you could just go away. No one's forcing you to be involved.
Dad if I do it, Dad if I don't. If I stay here, I have to listen to it. If I don't, I know it's gonna happen.